Hey, what's up, everybody? Should you question your CPA or your tax preparer? I'm going to say absolutely you should be questioning them. Now, there's two different types of questions here. The first one is a question to help you gain a better understanding of what's in your tax return. The second question is actually questioning whether or not your CPA or tax preparer did something correctly. And I'm going to say you need to ask both of these. Definitely, without a doubt, go ahead and ask both types of questions. So let's jump in a little bit. The first type, to help yourself gain a better understanding. I don't think any tax preparer is going to have an issue with you asking questions to help yourself gain a better understanding. I don't think you're going to be hesitant asking those types of questions. But I'm going to dig in a little bit there because I see a lot of times where people they trust their tax preparer, and that's great, and you should absolutely have a tax preparer that you trust. I hope that my clients trust me too, and it doesn't necessarily bother me too much when they say, I trust you, because that's the type of relationship that we want to have with our clients. But you need to have a basic understanding of what's in the tax return. You can hire a professional, you can hire a CPA, an enrolled agent, or other tax professional, and they sign the return, or they should legally. If they are paid professional, they must sign the tax return. So you need to run if they're not actually signing the tax return as a paid professional. But even though they sign the return, you still have to sign it as well. And as soon as you sign it, because it's your tax return, you are taking full responsibility for everything that is in that tax return. Most of the time, if an issue comes up and you end up owing more taxes or penalties, it's going to fall on you as the tax preparer and not, as the taxpayer and not on your tax preparer. Now, of course, if there is some negligence there on the preparer's part, or if they didn't do the proper due diligence, or if they just fraudulently made something up and stuck it in your return, then they're going to have to answer for that. But the majority of the time, it's going to fall back onto you, even though you have hired a tax professional. So you need to make sure you have a basic understanding of what's in the tax return. That's why I sit down with all of my clients, unless they just absolutely don't want to. And I go through the return with them, answering their questions, pointing out where I put every piece of information on the return so that you have a good understanding. This is also a great spot to catch some errors or mistakes. I'm human. Every tax preparer out there is human, and they can key something in incorrectly. And by going through it, now I double check my work before even sending it to the client. I'll do the return, I'll take a break from it for a day or two, I'll come back, and I'll double check the work, going back through the return and every number I put in to make sure that I didn't key something in by mistake. But also, that next step, that third time we go through it, I go through it with the client. This is a fresh set of eyes who's looking at it as well. They understand what happened during the year, maybe a little bit better than I did because I'm getting that second hand from them. But we go through the return together, and sometimes, it's not super often, but sometimes we see something that actually needs to change because of that review process. So I think you absolutely need to be doing that and gaining a better understanding. Now, that second type of question, actually questioning whether or not your tax preparer, your CPA, did something correctly. Now, you might be hesitant to ask this question for multiple reasons. Maybe you've asked a professional something before and you've got a negative response, a pushback of, hey, I do this for a living. I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. Why are you questioning me? You need to trust me because you don't do this for a living and you don't have as much knowledge on this subject. I would say that's not a very great preparer to be with or professional to be with if you get that type of response. I understand that response. I understand the temptation to give that type of response. And that's probably one reason why you might be hesitant to ask those types of questions. The other one might be you aren't sure. And yeah, you're maybe worried, even if you haven't got that response before, to say, well, who am I to question this professional who does this? But I'm going to say you still need to ask these questions. Professionals are not above making mistakes or needing to double check or verify information, because especially in the tax law changes so frequently that a preparer might be remembering something from a few years ago that has changed, or remembering a change that didn't quite go through because it was speculation, the Congress didn't actually pass that law or something. So it's always good to have a preparer who's willing to double check things when you ask questions. And I think that you definitely need to ask these questions. Now, there does come a point where that question shifts and you actually are lacking trust and not trusting your professional. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, if you ask a question, hey, Brad, did you do this correct? I was reading something and I feel like that was this, okay? Now, those questions, I love them because they give me an opportunity to help you better understand the situation. Sometimes the response to that is, hey, look, yeah, I mean, you Google things. Google is great. I do it all the time. But you've come across a resource that's not very reliable. Here's what the tax code said. Here's what the professional research analysis that I subscribe to says. And this is why what is accurate is different than what you read. Other times, it's just, yeah, you're right. That actually is a possibility. There are people who are doing that, but it's more aggressive than what I would think you want to be. And sometimes those things I leave up to the client and say, look, if you want to be that aggressive and take a stance like that with your tax situation, then we can do it. But here's the risk, and I want you to know those up front, but it's your right to take that position. Other times it's just, I've actually said, hey, look, you're right. I overlooked that piece, or I didn't quite understand your tax situation when you explained it to me. But now that you've gone a little bit further in depth, I agree with you. I think that's accurate, and we can move forward with that. So then it shifts, though, to where if I do, or if you're prepared, your professional tax preparer, CPA, gives you a response that says, hey, look, this is why, in my professional opinion, in the research that I've now done to follow up on your question, this is why that's not the appropriate way to move forward. And you just continue to say, I think you're wrong. I think we should do this. And they say, well, here's what I did. This is my experience. This is why I believe this is true. And you say, yeah, but this other person does it. This person I found on Google does it. I think you're wrong. I think you need it. If you just keep pushing like that, well, now you've hit this point where you don't actually trust your tax preparer to give you a good response, to do the research, and to rely on their expertise in a situation. You've just completely overlooked that. And that's when you either need to find a new preparer that you do trust, or if that's going to become a habit with any preparer, you just might not have a good working relationship with any preparer. Now, I've actually experienced that in my previous job before, where there was just pushback and pushback, and it was just a lack of trust in the education, the expertise, and the research done on a topic like that. And that's the point that you don't want to cross. But now, again, I'm going to tell you here to wrap up this video, ask the questions to help yourself better understand. And if you come across a resource that says you can do something that your preparer says you can't, or you come across an idea that your preparer has not brought up to you, absolutely bring that up, ask those questions. And if you don't get a good courteous response, you get kind of this arrogant, hey, who are you to be asking me that? Then find a new preparer, honestly. Find someone who's going to sit down and actually work with you as a partner. I see this as, it's not my tax return. I want to do it right, and I have responsibilities to sign the return, and I cannot sign a return that I believe is prepared in error. And so there's some things there, but I'm working with you, and we're in this together. And if you have an idea or a thought, I'm going to absolutely run down that path with you and either explain to you why it's not a good idea, or jump on it with you, help you back it up, and take that position. My name's Brad. I'm with Wooten CPA. My goal is to bring peace to your finance and tax responsibilities. One way I do that is through these videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you're notified of new videos. And drop ideas for videos if you have questions for me. Drop them in the comments. I'd love to make videos that address your questions specifically. Thanks for watching.